Hey guys, welcome to part 6 of my Trinity videos about Jesus and the Trinity. So at this point I want to talk to you about more verses that people say shows that Jesus was subordinate to the Father. And so I want to start with 1 Corinthians chapter 15. Let's read it together. And when all these things shall be subdued unto him, speaking of Jesus, then shall the Son himself be subjected unto him, the Father, that put all things under him, that God the Father may be in awe. Many people say that Jesus here in this verse has finally come to be over everything, over all things, and get everything put under his power and his influence. And the second he's got it all, it's then he has to yield it back to his Father, because it was never about Jesus and because he was always secondary to his Father in the first place. That's not my reading of that passage. This isn't Jesus just giving up what the Father's given to him. Once Jesus is subdued and put all things under him, being equal with the Father, he shares and gives all things to his Father. This is a picture of the Godhead at work. What's mine is yours, in this mutual bond of love that's there within this relationship. And so that would be my reading of this. This isn't Jesus being subordinate and having to give it up to the Father, but this is Jesus in love for his Father, giving to his Father all that's been put into his hand, so that together they can rule and reign over the earth, which is how I read it in other passages of scripture in the Bible. So let's have a look at another passage. In 1 Corinthians chapter 11, I often hear people talk about the order of God. And let me read the passage. And it reads, "But I would have you to know that the head of every man is Christ, and the head of the woman is man, and the head of Christ is God." And so in this passage, what people tend to do is they say that, man is the head of the woman, and obviously God is over the man. And they say, yeah, but look at this. Christ is the head of the church, and the Father or God is over him. And they have this very simple lineage. But what they don't realize is what's actually playing out here is Jesus is being described as a mediator. The church belongs to Jesus, not to the Father. The church belongs to Jesus. The church is Jesus' bride. And so Jesus is the mediator between the Father and his bride, the church. Jesus is the in-between, being fully God and fully man. Jesus runs in between and makes intercession. Jesus is the one that's telling his Father that, you know what, I've met someone and I'm in love with them and I'm going to marry them and I'm going to bring them into the house. Jesus is the covenant mediator that brings us into this relationship with the Godhead, with the rest of the Godhead, because Jesus paid the price for his church with his own blood. In the same way, it's not a hierarchy saying that men are over women. I'm actually sad that I'm having to say this and I don't hear this being said. But men ought to be the ones that when they see their wives' faults, fall on their knees and in prayer they go before God on behalf of their family, on behalf of their wife. This isn't some hierarchy so that you can rule over your family. This is about you making intercession. This is about you being a priest in your own household and showing your household how to get before God and ask God for help. This is what's being played out here in the scriptures. And this is what I want you to be aware of. There are a lot of verses that speak about Jesus appear in a way that appears that he's subordinate or he's lesser. And they make all these parallels and they try and make it into hierarchies, when in fact they're missing the point that if you really get these passages in their context, it's speaking about how Jesus was a servant in his heart and he went before God and he constantly was a mediator of a covenant. He was constantly putting others before himself. He was teaching love. He was playing a role. And I don't say that because I'm just trying to excuse every time there's a verse that seems to suggest that Jesus is less than God. But a lot of the time, people are just playing with the context, and they'll even go as far as to make women less important than men when they're making these arguments. I just think it's a bit damaging and a bit damning. Husbands, love your wives just as Christ loved the church. There's a pattern that we should be following with this. And Christ loved the church by making intercession for his church, night and day, by praying for it, by always going before, always being present before the throne of God, making intercession for his believers. And that's the same place that a husband needs to be for his family, for his wife. So if you've got any more verses, please do post them in the description below and I'll come to them. But I'm not going to take any more time right now to speak about Jesus being equal with the Father, because I feel like I've said a lot about this already now.